Okay, here we are, serious and silliness. And I have another special guest, another great interview. And that person is a very accomplished life coach and relationship coach, Lilli Bewley. And you have been a relationship coach / life coach for the last 10 years or so.
Yes.
So why don't you well, what I want to do first is I'm going to say how we met, and then I'm going to give you the floor and let you say how exactly it is you became such a accomplished life coach. So we spoke before, right? And what had happened was I was having a conversation with another guy at work, and we were talking about the dominant submissive dynamic within a marriage or partnership or whatnot, right? And my argument was that I don't think the person that is submissive in the relationship is happy. And he said, well, no, usually those people like to be in that position, or they like that. So I started doing some research, and I came across an article that you wrote, right? And it was called Dominant Submissive Personality Types in Codependent Relationships. And I Googled your name, and you were nice enough, and I wrote you on Instagram, and you were nice enough to write me back. And then here we are.
Yeah.
So first thing is I'd like to know, how did you actually get into life coaching and relationship coaching and whatnot?
Well, it started with me in a very bad place in my life, to be honest.
Okay.
On one of my birthdays have never been like my favorite time of year. I always felt like that birthdays were like the days that I was supposed to be loved. Everybody was supposed to do everything for me, but it never really worked out like that. Like I never got the love that I thought I should ever receive on my birthdays. But birthday.
Not even a birthday cake?
Sometimes not.
Okay.
But I think it was more just about the feeling of like specialness, I guess you would say. Like I never just felt like, I don't know, special enough, I guess I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe.
I understand.
Like no big 16th birthday party or anything like that. But anyways, it was on a particular birthday that I had like a really shitty day. I can say shitty, right?
Say whatever you want.
Okay.
I don't get paid yet.
Okay, fair enough. No sponsors yet.
Yeah, exactly.
It was really shitty. I was in a really bad relationship at the time. And that
you don't mind me asking, how old were you at the time?
I was 35.
Okay.
Yes. I was just in a really bad place in my life. Like everything that I had done, we talked a little bit before about like my professional path, which on the outside is pretty cool. Like my resume is pretty stacked. I worked for the Knicks and the Rangers, the Kings, the NBA. I did all of this like great stuff. I worked for Apple as well.
That's amazing.
Thank you. But what I started to realize around that time was like all that stuff that I had been doing, I was still unhappy, like deeply, deeply, deeply unhappy with myself and my situation, my relationship in particular, my relationships all around. But that night, my boyfriend and I got into a fight, like a verbal altercation, and he started like tickling me, but he was crossing a boundary with me. Like I didn't want to be touched.
You were arguing with him and he started tickling you?
Yeah, I don't know. Like it was like part of his way of, I guess, trying to get back together, right? But
so he was kind of like playfully trying to.
Yeah, but to me, okay. I just wasn't. That wasn't.
You weren't feeling it.
Yeah, definitely weren't feeling it.
Okay, all right.
But to me, it was like crossing a boundary, and I kept telling him no. I kept telling him no. I kept telling him no. He just kept like you know how like people kind of overpower. Well, you probably don't, but sometimes people get overpowered physically, and it just freaked me. It just freaked me the fuck out. And
this was just from tickling, or more went on?
He was just like, he wouldn't give me my space. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, no, you know, like yeah. I needed a boundary. Like I needed, which is the theme, in the past,
Yeah.
But anyway, so it just turned into this like a really shitty night. I went in the bedroom, I just was bawling, and I felt like at that point, like nothing in my life was working. Like I felt like I had tried all these things. I've done all these things. I tried to have a good relationship with him and communicate. And I just didn't understand why I couldn't be happy. Like, why the fuck can I not be happy? I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do. And a thought just popped in my head that there is a gun in the drawer beside my bed.
It was that bad, huh?
It was bad. Yeah. And it was a lot, like, how long do you have? Like, there was a lot leading up to that, like, in my life, but that was like the pinnacle moment for me of, I'd never thought about suicide before. I, like, nothing like that had ever happened to me. And so I picked up the gun and I held it in my hands. It was cold and it was like just scary, and just like all these visceral kind of feelings kind of came up. And from that point of like scared, like I basically scared the shit out of myself. Like, I had never ever thought about that before. And from that point on, I just like opened up to healing personally. And then, again, it's like a long process, but really that was like the pinnacle moment in my life that made me turn to myself rather than others.
Okay.
And so since then, I've been honing in on helping other people heal codependency, create fulfilling relationships, live with purpose is what I do now. So yeah, long answer to a short question, but it really scared me so much. Like, I realized that things needed to change or I would literally die. And so I started, like I said, I started jumping into healing. I started coaching people at that time as well, just coaching people little by little what I had learned. And now, like, today I'm living this like ridiculously amazing life where my business is fulfilling. Like, I make my own schedule. I make, great money. And even if I didn't make great money, like, the purpose kind of fills me up anyways. I'm in the middle of writing a book. There's just so much good stuff going on because I decided at that point that I was going to, like, put myself forward.
Well, that's an amazing story. And if I could just backtrack and ask a couple of questions, was there any drug abuse or alcohol abuse at the time, especially during the time where you were really about to, that night with the arguing with the boyfriend or whatnot?
No, that was straight up sober.
So it was all emotion.
Straight up sober. Yep.
Wow. Okay. And this might seem like a strange question, but I think people would like to know how, when you said you had the gun in your hand, how far did it go? Did you put it in your mouth? Did you put it to your head? Was it cocked? Was it loaded? Or was
No,
it just the fact that you held the gun?
it was that for me.
It was
definitely that for me.
Okay.
That I like the act of thinking it first and then pulling it out of the drawer and holding it in my hands. It was so fucking scary.
Yeah, I can imagine. And in Arizona, that's like a gun state, right? Like, everybody has firearms, right?
Yeah.
For the most
One
part.
baby on one hip, gun on the other for the most part.
Yeah. So it would be very easy. And I think about if you all you really needed was a little push, maybe if you were using alcohol or drugs, you and your ex-boyfriend?
Oh yeah.
Totally ex?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Both of you could have been, in the coroner. But I'm glad you didn't. And you're obviously
That got real deep real fast, huh?
no, that's fine. I'm glad you didn't. And I always respect honesty. And when somebody's honest, it is immediate respect, especially for me. I would think the majority of people. And I think the majority of people, when you have like when you're very visible and you kind of tell it like it is, and look, this is what happened to me, and this is what made me change, and this is how I became who I am. I think people respect that. I certainly do. Okay, so now that we're gonna like put the Kleenex tissues away, right? So now you are this tremendous, accomplished life coach with a booming business. You make your own schedule. You look healthy, right? You certainly don't look like somebody who was troubled in the past. You look very, very healthy, right? And so things are going well.
Yes, for sure.
Good. Okay. So fantastic story. And obviously you are probably very motivational for people. And and I'm saying this sincerely because one of my pet peeves is when somebody puts something motivational on their social media, but you know them as a person and you're like, you are the least motivational person. But with you walk the walk and you talk the talk.
Well, I mean, what you were talking about is honesty.
Right.
And I think that honesty I think honesty is more than words, right? Like it's a feeling.
It is.
Right? And it's emotion and it's connection and stuff like that. So,
and you need to be honest in order to heal and make yourself better. If you're not accountable, you'll never be able to be a better person. Okay. But I came across,
coach.
That's right. I came across this article, Dominant and Submissive Personality Types in Codependent Relationships, which you wrote, and it was also a podcast you had said, right? Was there always an interview or something like that?
Yeah, it's a podcast as well.
Okay.
2018, I think, is
so I have been, I guess you could say I've been obsessed. I don't think obsessed, but I've been extremely interested in relationships where there is one extremely dominant person and one extremely submissive person, especially when the man is submissive and the woman is dominant, which I might be wrong, but today that may seem to be, when you have that dynamic, that seems to be more so than the man being severely dominant. Am I right? Or you're the professional? So
Keep going.
It seems to be, or maybe it always has. I don't know. It seems to be today, in that dynamic of a relationship, the man is usually extremely submissive and the woman is usually dominant. I mean, if that's what from my experience, put it that way. And it's always fascinated me because a woman, generally speaking, wants a strong masculine man, and a man usually wants a woman that's feminine and wants to take, the leadership role. And it has always fascinated me because it's not the norm. I come from a very masculine background. So when I have these conversations with guys from work, they're great guys from work, but they have as much, knowledge about these things as I do. So that's why I Googled your name and I wanted to question you on it. So what I wanted you to do is if you could just kind of sum up the article and maybe give us your experience about this dynamic in partnerships, marriages, and so on and so forth.
Okay. How long do you have? I'm just kidding. So basically, I'll try to sum it up and then we can kind of roll from there, I guess. But like when you're talking about codependent, you can use that word or you can use unbalanced.
No, what do you mean when you say codependent? What exactly does that mean?
Well, there are a lot of definitions. If you look it up on Webster, there are a lot of definitions kind of floating out there. So let me just say that. Mm-hmm. The term itself originated probably about, now it's been 40 or so years ago. And really it was based off the dynamic of an alcoholic abuser or an addictive personality in a family. And how a lot of times you would have this person, the addict in the family, that took up just a lot of energy and time. And, you can only imagine kind of what kind of chaos that kind of household would be like.
I can understand.
And a lot of times there would be one person or sometimes multiple, a couple, a mom and dad, for example, that would be enabling a relationship, meaning they were always there to, and again, this is kind of, it's a little bit outdated, I think, but, just kind of starting from the beginning, but there would be an enabling force in that relationship where you had the addict who was just the spotlight was always on this person. They were always getting in trouble, or they're, doing this or doing that, acting erratically. And then the enabler was that's kind of where the codependent person persona develops, right?
Okay.
Today, some people use, and it's changed. Again, that was a while ago where people were, we know that there are addictions out there. We've known that for a long time, but we didn't realize how addictions affected other people within that sphere, that social sphere, or that family sphere. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay. So today, a lot of people define codependency as like, you want me to need you, basically. So they're filling a need, or they're feeling like a want or a need in their life through helping other people. Okay. And a lot of times that person that spends all of their time and energy, everything that they have, sacrificing themselves, they lose themselves, right? And so building up to my definition of codependency, my definition of codependency is really just a complete disconnection from yourself. And that could be in any other way. Does that make sense?
Complete disconnection from yourself by actually from through another person, another person's.
So that's where it gets tricky. I like to generalize that because some people have codependent relationship with like money, for example. Some people have a codependent relationship with working out. Some people, so you see what I'm saying? Like it's kind of just a loss of losing your essence and your true sense of self, in my view.
Okay.
For something, or job is a big one, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. So basically it's in your definition, it is within a romantic relationship, and a codependent person is somebody that is kind of lost within himself, and the relationship is off balance. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think that's great.
Beautiful.
In my view, yes, you're doing well, Daniel-san. So kind of going back to your original question, which was trying to sum up the article, is that like unhealthy, unbalanced, like you said, codependent relationships, they typically have like one person that's kind of more in the spotlight, right? And one person that's kind of below, lack of a better term, but you know what I'm saying? So you have your dominant and then your submissive. So does that make sense?
Yes.
So in my view, a more healthy relationship kind of balances the scale, or it has like a good window of opportunity to get that balance. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times if they are, you can see it in a lot of relationships, probably like public relationships, where there's one person that's, maybe not like in the background, right? Like they don't have the 50%, 50-50 spotlight. Does that make sense? So that's kind of where the article is really kind of pointing out, is that, taking away the like sexual innuendos aside, which is doms and subs, which is a whole nother show.
Yeah, we're not talking about submissive.
Yeah, so like just to clear that up with
the personality types is what we mean.
Right. So just to clear that up kind of with your audience.
That makes sense, because a lot of people get those confused. Sure.
Yeah. But really it's the imbalance in the relationship, right? So it could be, and we'll probably get into it, but it could be male or female, or it could be female male. Mm-hmm. But really it's like, where's the healthy balance between, are both people really seeing themselves? Are both people really presenting themselves in a true nature? That kind of thing.
Okay. So the article went on to describe why a dominant person chooses a submissive person as a partner, and vice versa. Why a submissive person chooses a dominant person. A lot of people think that they don't choose their partner, but they do. They whether it is unconscious or not, they're choosing. But it was very interesting when I read the article as to why they choose each other for relationships. And why don't you explain that? Because you probably do a hell of a lot better job at explaining it than I do.
Well, you sound like you have something specific in mind, and I honestly I looked over the article. I could probably spitball, but go ahead. It was
you had explained that the dominant one in a relationship would only pick a submissive person because they want to be in charge, and they kind of have this narcissistic personality, if you will. And the submissive person is basically so unsure and so insecure of himself that they pick a dominant person so that they could lead the relationship, because they don't want to. They're too scared to actually make decisions, lead, and so on and so forth.
Great summation.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
So if I can elaborate a little bit.
Yes, please.
Like, how many people do you know that move from the same essentially like the same relationship to another, right? Like they, abuse is like the first thing that comes to mind. I don't know if you know anybody personally, but a lot of times men or women really that are abused and they don't heal tend to attract the same relationship in their
Yes.
next one, right?
100% accurate.
Right. So, I mean, that was a great kind of like summation in that I'm not quite sure that either type really chooses. I really don't know how much choice sometimes.
Well, I think that only because if you meet a quick example, before I obviously got married, I dated, and I remember I went on a date with this girl, and I could tell her personality was dominant, right? I could see it. I mean, and within the first date, she would make comments that would be belittling, and she had this kind of energy where I was beneath her, so on and so forth. And I chose not to call her again. Right. So there, you do make a choice, whether you want to believe it or not. Right. You do make a choice. If you go ahead and if I were to go ahead and have continued a relationship with that person, I would have to have chose to be the submissive person in that relationship because this person was so strongly dominant, but that's not who I wanted to be with. So I did.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I would have to believe that if two dominant people decided to talk, there would be so much stress and chaos that sooner or later one of the person's going to go, not for me.
Likely.
Okay.
Likely.
Good.
So choice is a weird thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, obviously we choose to do things. We choose to propose. We choose to go on the next date with this person. When the scales are off balance like that, and you can talk about like conditioning, right? Like the person that goes from one of the same to the other, right?
Mm-hmm.
The choice isn't so easy. There are unconscious things happening, right? Like fire to a flame. A dominant person will fit like this with with a submissive person.
Yes.
Right. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So
I agree. Yeah. No, you're 100% accurate. Absolutely.
yeah. So it's kind of an unconscious thing going on, especially when
Definitely.
you have, yeah.
Definitely. I don't think enough people are aware of their behavior or how they get into a relationship. But it is definitely unconscious. And you could tell those two fit like a glove, because anytime you have one person that's extremely dominant, they would choose, or they're with somebody who's extremely submissive, and vice versa. That's the only two that could possibly go together, as far as
think about it. Sorry to interrupt you.
Okay.
So think about it. Like a dominant person is very self-focused, right? Self. Look at me, look at me, look at me. I'm loud. Like all that stuff, right? And a submissive person is very others focused. Like, maybe, could be a lot of things, but like, I'm too weak. I can't speak up. All these things, right? So it makes sense why someone that is others focused, a submissive person, fits with a dominant person that is self-focused, because they have the same equal of loss of self, right? But they attract, again, like fire to a flame, because the submissive person doesn't, is weak, so to speak, in their mind, like, I don't have a voice, I can't speak up. And so they fit so well together with a dominant person who can't shut up.
Okay. No,
Does that make sense?
It makes 100%. It is 100%, and it's accurate. And I'm only saying that it's accurate, not that I have the knowledge you have, but only because you're basically reiterating my experience. Now, not that I was in a relationship like that, but I mean, as far as my experience of seeing people in those relationships, that's exactly basically how it works.
Yeah. I was going to say, and also too, like what I just said is that if you're listening, if anyone's out there listening, like, weak or strength, it's based on perception, right? We all know that we all have inner strength in there somewhere, right? Like we all know that we can be a true person or true to self person. Like we all have like a beautiful human essence. Getting a little spiritual on your podcast here.
It's okay.
But you know, like weaker strength doesn't mean that you're good or bad. So let me just say that. But a lot of times, you know, like the lower, like the submissive person has feelings more, you know, like they have more emotions for the most part. So if someone's listening out there, I just want to say that like you are innately strong, right? You're just maybe not being seen as that, right? Like you're in a position on the team with your with your relationship where you're playing that role for this person to feel strong.
Okay. So
how do you feel about that?
Also, in this dynamic, we're talking about the extreme, but this dynamic also exists in the not so extreme. So what I mean by that is, I've seen where the one partner is somewhat dominant and then the other partner is somewhat submissive. Where I've also seen where one partner is extremely dominant and the other partner is extremely submissive, right? And like, for example, the dominant person will insult that person in front of friends or family, but the not so submissive person will kind of give her a little bit back, but just not as much. Whereas the extremely submissive person won't say a word. So in your experience, is there like a range? Because it seems to me that in this dynamic, there's an extreme range, and then it kind of closes in a little bit to when you get to like respect each other a little bit more, if you will, if that makes any sense. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think it's hard to define, right? Like I think that is pretty hard to generalize in my experience, right?
Mm.
Like your relationship with your wife, it's, you know, there's a range, right? There's a tolerable range in the middle, which is,
Right.
you know, and that's why people, you know, if you've ever noticed, that's why people at the very beginning, like of dating or something like that, of a relationship, especially if they're in that, you know, very interesting dynamic that we were just talking about, is that at the beginning the window is like this, which is a tolerable range of healthiness, balance, you know, being seen, right? And then sometimes it just drifts, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, so I don't know, I mean, I think that's hard to define.
Okay.
You know.
And in your experience, why does it drift? Why do, after so much time, people maybe test each other or lose respect for each other a little bit, where at the beginning, yeah, a majority of time it's not. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some times where right off the bat, like that date that I explained, right off the bat, it was like, oh no, I'm the dominant person, that's it, you know. But then there are times where it's like, you know, I get these hunky-dory, and then after a few months it's like, oh, let me push the envelope a little bit, whether they're doing it unconsciously or not, you know. In your experience, why does that happen? Is that actually trying to, I'm of the opinion that is trying to, when that happens, that person is trying to establish dominance. It's like, let me push the envelope a little bit. They call it a shit test. Let me see how far I could push it. And if the person doesn't step up, then she kind of knows, he or she knows that the barrier.
Right.
If he or she doesn't step up, then that person, well, they push even further and even further and even further, to the point where, well, if you're not going to do anything, then I'm not going to have any respect for you. Why does that happen? I'm of the opinion that that person that does that is trying to create the leadership quality in the relationship, or create dominance in that relationship.
Well, I think you just answered your own question.
Thank you.
I don't know why I'm here. You literally, you just said it, which is the barrier. Like, you knew, for example, that first date that you went on, you knew within that small amount of time that you spent with that person that, that's not for me, right? Not everyone has those skills, right? Not everyone has that intuitive nature. Not everyone has the, like, the awareness of, like, values and morals that they're looking for in a partner. And I speak from experience here, obviously.
No, I
right?
agree. I agree.
So not everyone has the ability to, like, barriers, right? You hear, like, in the self-development world, like, boundaries a lot. Boundaries. And boundaries aren't always just like, don't come over. Boundaries are like, where do I stop and where does the other person end?
That's right.
Right.
When you talk about boundaries, actually, let me ask another question. When you said a lot of people don't know, they're not aware of the morals and values, I agree with that. But do you think there are also people who will deal with somebody being disrespectful or dominant because they're insecure, or because they want to be with a partner so bad that they're willing to deal with it, basically? You think is there an element of that going on as well?
What do you think?
I think I'm accurate. Because from a guy perspective, there are from a guy perspective, there are guys that have this energy, if you will, that are very confident, and they have this energy that is very masculine, and especially after you get to a certain age, right? I like to say there's fake confidence or real confidence. Like, if you're 21 and getting into a fight at the bar because you're a guy with your friends, that's fake confidence. That's foolishness. But you get to 35 and you kind of done your thing with life. You kind of, like, you're going along pretty well, and you're kind of building a certain confidence and masculinity and a world of success, if you will. And you won't deal with that. You won't deal with somebody coming along and trying to, you kind of know your worth. And then I've seen plenty of guys who, no matter what the education level is, no matter what the accomplishment is, they still have that thing about them that they don't carry that energy or that confidence that I know my worth, and they're still willing to deal with disrespect or nonsense or chaos because they're so willing to deal with it because they just want to be with somebody, or they're afraid they don't know when they're going to find the next person. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I've had a friend of mine. This was years ago, and he was 30 years old, and he was a printer. He had a career. He bought a nice home. He had a house, and he was single, and he didn't see himself as having any worth. And girls would literally just kind of come and go. And, like, he was kind of seeing another girl, and she was, kind of, obviously to everybody else, seeing other people, but to him, he kind of dealt with it. Like, it was things like, oh, don't pick me up in front of my house, pick me up around the corner. And he wouldn't ask why. He would just go along with it. And then I remember having a conversation with him, and I said, do you realize you have a lot to offer, right? You realize you have a home, you have a career, you have a car, you have money in the bank, you have a lot to offer. And he's like, I don't see it that way. Is it just a personality difference? So what my question really is the submissive person seems to be submissive no matter what, whether they have tremendous success or whether they don't. It seems to be that personality type will just choose the submissive role.
It's mind-boggling, right?
It is. It's strange
Because
because I've also seen guys that had nothing to offer and lived in their grandmother's basement and sold narcotics to make some pocket money, and they thought they walked on water. And it blew me away, the quality of girls that they would get. And I'd be like, my God, how do you get such a beautiful woman when you're a complete loser? Just because you don't walk or talk like a loser? I don't think yourself like one, but you are. I don't.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling, right? Like models who are like the epitome of beauty, right? Quote unquote, just putting this as like an example. They're this like most self-aware people, like self-defeating, hating people that almost as bad as we are, right? They'll pick out things in the mirror that, like it's just crazy to think about, like when people don't see what you see.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're fucked for life.
I don't think anybody can. I don't think, I agree. I don't think you need to be. I think it comes at a time in your life where you choose to be. At the beginning, in early life, in your 20s, maybe into your 30s or whatnot, I could kind of, when you're not experienced with life, with people, with relationships, I can get how you could succumb to all that.
So, do you mind if I jump in?
Absolutely. Go right ahead.
So we talked a little bit about like my personal story, and the last time, which was like the 5th time that my then boyfriend, we had broken up and gotten back together. I had he had broken in my house twice. I had call the cops on him. He pushed me. I got a restraining order against him, and still I went back with him the 5th time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
so
today you would never do that, but
no.
why back then you would?
Well, I mean, it's like complex, right? Like this is kind of what we're talking about right now. There's not like a black and white answer, I think. But when I got back together with him the last time, like the 5th time or whatever freaking time it was, I had resigned myself to a life of shittiness. Like I literally had resigned myself in my head to and I told him verbally, I was like, you're my person and I'm just going to fucking deal with it. Right. Which is horrible. Right. But what had happened was my whole life up until that night when I thought about suicide had told me that that's all that I was worth. Right. So it's it's a pattern. It was conditioning in my life. There's a lot of shitty things that happened to me. But my whole life had told me that if I couldn't get anyone else if I couldn't be with him. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah. So it's not just one, it is a choice, right? We know that we have choices day to day. We have choices to go for a walk. We have choices to drink water. There are lots of little choices that we make throughout the day and for big picture things too. But there are also larger things at play, right? That are we're talking about unconscious stuff. So I don't know if that even answers your question, but that's just kind of what came to mind when you were talking about why.
No, you did it. You did actually answer it. You would probably need, Sigmund Freud or Carl Jung to figure it out, right? To figure out.
I got you.
Yeah. The next question I had is, in the dominant submissive relationship, who do you think suffers more? Because when I look at that relationship, I don't see either person being happy. But does the submissive person suffer more? You mean, logic would think that they would, but maybe not necessarily.
Good question. What would you say if I said I think that they both suffer equally?
I would tend to agree. I would tend to agree because I don't think you can't respect somebody that kisses your ass. That's a line from Ferris Bueller, by the way. Yeah. And I don't think you could be happy with a partner that you don't respect. Right.
So if you don't respect a partner, do you respect yourself?
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
That's the root.
Okay. Okay.
Do you feel that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Touche.
Yeah.
Yeah, because everybody would like to think the submissive person would suffers more because she is or he is verbally. Usually in my relationship, it's usually verbally abusive. I've seen that, and in the situation where it's a man, it is more direct verbally abusive. A situation where it was a woman, a lot of times it is more like the backhanded compliment, passive aggressive verbal abuse, if you will. It could
Still
never be.
abuse.
It's still, yeah, it still is. And I never had anybody. I never. Well, it's this the passive aggressive or the backhanded compliment abuse. It's strange because I feel like that person that does that does it because they have they can defend themselves within. So what I mean by that is, all right, to me, one of the things that I take as complete disrespect, if I were to be dating, I'm married and whatnot, is if I'd be dating a girl and she brings up a friend that makes a better living than I do, right? Like, oh, so and so, oh yeah, you got to see the house that he lives in, and oh my God, the car that he drives, it's beautiful. It's and I feel it in my gut. I'm like, you're degrading me. You're trying to say you have people, people that are better than me, right? But if I call you out on it and I say, are you trying to say that you have friends that are better than me? So why don't you go and be with him and not me? And I've done this. And then they go, what? I'm just saying, it's just a conversation. I didn't say anything bad. I'm just talking about my friend. And I feel like it's strategically placed there, whether it's unconscious or not, right? It's never, you ain't worth shit, right? And then I think the person that is not as aware just goes, yeah, I guess she was, or he was just trying to have a conversation, right? And then you put yourself in that position again and again and again and again. Mm-hmm. And you inevitably feel, inadequate on all sides.
Yeah.
What is your experience?
Like that scenario, I'm going to go into coach mode real quick, but that scenario that you just said was like you got triggered, right? Because she, you felt whatever she was communicating, it felt like an attack on you. Right. Whether it was or wasn't, we don't know. Right. But you know how we were talking. Well, I mean, do we know?
Yeah.
We know?
Yeah.
Okay. How do we know?
Because that would be equivalent to, let's say you and I are on a date, right? And you're talking about the gym. Oh, I just trying to get in shape and I went to the gym. And I say, oh, this girl that I know at the gym, she's a trainer and she competes in bikini contests and she looks amazing.
I'll be like, sick. That's awesome.
But you don't want to hear that. And you don't want to hear that. And if I'm truly interested in you, I'm not going to bring that person up if that person even exists. I'm going to be talking about you and your workout and how you're doing on getting in shape and so on and so forth. To me, that's the respectful thing to do. And if I come at you and go, I love cars. I'm a big American muscle car person, right? And I buy a new Corvette or a new Charger or whatever, right? Those are my two favorites. And the person goes, oh yeah, my friend so-and-so, he has a Maserati and he has a Lamborghini and he, and you're just like, all you have to do is say congratulations, it's beautiful, right?
I don't know. I don't agree. I think
you could disagree with me, that's fine, that's why I have you on here.
Well, I was going to try to go do some psychoanal analysis on you, but I'm not going to because I don't think it's going to work.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't, personally, the way that I'll just say, like, the way that I see that is I see that if that's a threat, right? Like, if that person brings up that stuff as like in your mind, it's a threat. I don't personally see that unless it's like super intentional, it may not be. But I do think that, like, and what we're talking about today is like, sometimes what you project on the outside, you feel on the inside. So why would you be threatened, or why would I be threatened if you're talking about a bikini contest with one of your friends, supposedly?
Right.
I don't
Because,
know.
to answer the question, instinctually, that is a threat to a man, and instinctually talking about how a beautiful friend of yours would be a threat to a woman. It's just my opinion.
Okay.
But
So we'll agree
I'm
to
getting
disagree on that.
yeah. What I'm trying to get, that's fine, and I totally respect your opinion and whatnot. But what I'm trying to get at is there seems to be levels of the dominant submissive dynamic. What we've been talking about has been the extremes, but there seems to be levels to it, right? It doesn't have to be extreme. It doesn't have to be extremely obvious to people. It could be, camouflaged a little bit, or it could be not as obvious.
Yeah.
And these are certain little, there's certain little dialogue like that doesn't make it as obvious, but somebody's still trying to like spar with you for control of the relationship, if you will.
Right. I mean, like, would you, in your healthy relationship with your wife, would you say that for the most part, it's like 50-50, like 50-50 communication, 50-50 respect, 50, like everything kind of that's important to you? Wouldn't you say that besides those roles, like the man role or the woman role that, we kind of just talked about, wouldn't you say that it would be 50-50 somewhat balanced?
It is for the most part 50-50, and we do accept each other's masculine and feminine role, even though we probably make the same amount of money. But I will tell you with confidence this: as time goes on, my wife gains a little bit at a time more and more control. And I think it happens to every relationship. I have this joke that I say that the leader of the Hells Angels, after 15 years of marriage, just goes, "Whatever, honey, whatever you want to do is fine with me," right? Because she's just better at sparring with me. So what I mean by that is, I'll have a conversation with her and she'll disagree, and I'll give my side, and I know my side is accurate. And the reason why I know it's accurate is because she still won't agree. And then she'll backtalk or say some other kind of thing to confuse me. And after so much time, I can't, yeah, it's funny, but it's true. I don't communicate like that. I can't communicate like that. Right. So after so much time, you just give up, if you will, like, you'll go. And it's like after so many years, it's like those little small battles that you give up lead to like the giving up the leadership role. I know you're not supposed to talk about Bill Cosby, but he used to have this joke, and he used to say, "My wife is the boss. I don't know how I lost it. I don't know when I lost it. I don't even know if I ever had it." Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But what does the world look like though if you were co-leaders? That's what I'm trying to say, right? Like what are you losing, really? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I understand, like, there's a lot of like, we talked about this before, like generational roles, there's gender roles, like there's a lot of kind of
Sure.
I even think like regional roles, like where you live and where I grew up is probably a little bit different.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So besides that, right, like in a relationship, can you be co-leaders in the relationship?
I don't know. You know what? Yes, I think you can. And here's why I think you can. I think in the traditional sense, the actual traditional role where it's almost lost today, where the woman is home and she's a homemaker, and the man is the breadwinner. I think you could lead together, because they're dependent on each other. She wouldn't have the resources, and he wouldn't have a family life without her. Mm-hmm. So I think in that traditional sense, if one is kind of like the general of one part and the other one is the general of the other part, you kind of need each other, and then you actually kind of move forward together. You can't do it without each other. Yeah. But I think what happens today is, since both men and women are working, there's always kind of like this figuring it out, who is going to do what, which what, so on and so forth. Anyway, we're getting off on a tangent here. Kind of talking. What we were trying to say is that, okay, what we were trying to say is that the dominant and submissive roles in a dominant submissive relationship can be obvious, it can be extreme, but it also can be not so obvious. It could be very camouflaged or whatnot, and you don't see it right away. You could kind of take its course over time, which is what I was trying to get to. And then we started talking about different things. But I am going to ask the age-old question, the $1 million question. In the situation where the dominant is the woman, extreme, and the man is the submissive, extreme, right? I have had people actually tell me that man likes that situation. And my answer is, well, if he liked it, he would be happy. He doesn't look happy. So my question to you, you being the expert, is that person happy in that situation or not?
The question. Hard to say, right? But I think when we talked about before, you had a specific scenario you were talking about, which, may I kind of paraphrase?
Absolutely.
Okay. So you mentioned that you had witnessed someone in your life, like one of your friends that was a guy, wanting to do something with you, like hang out socially, but he wasn't able to because of his wife who said he couldn't, or whatever, right? Is that essentially like the...
Yes.
So do you tell me? I'm rhetorical, throw this back at you. If you are not able in your life to do something that you wanted to do, would you be happy?
No, definitely not. So
I think it depends on the situation, right? I think generalizing is a little bit dangerous in this kind of way, but I think that in that particular, like if you just think about it, like, if I can't be who I want to be, if my relationship is holding me back, if I can't, like, especially like being social, like things like that, that's like a very human need, right? Mm-hmm. And if I'm not able to fulfill that need because I have to keep my partner close, or, all these kind of like undercurrents of the unconscious mind that, we kind of talked about a little bit, like, are you really happy?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that person is happy, but I think that person is so afraid of not being, I think that person is so afraid of making a decision on their own, which is why I think they need the dominant person to begin with, but I don't think they're happy. Now, so final question for you. Have you seen relationships like this? Have you seen relationships like this been able to manage themselves and fix themselves where they actually can respect each other a little bit more?
Yeah.
You actually have? Okay, good.
I have, but it takes, like, there's a lot of different elements to healing that, right?
Okay, yeah.
And the tough thing comes with typically, again, generalizations, but typically the submissive person is like very empathetic, like is an empath, it feels feelings and emotions, and it's easy for that person typically to tap into healing. While the person on the dominant side of the spectrum, it's much, much harder.
Mm-hmm.
So of course, like a relationship can get better if each person works on their individual shit, but then if they work on their shit together, it doesn't, like, it's rare, but it can happen. Yes.
Okay. Because I've seen that relationship from family, go all the way till death do us part, right? I've seen that type of relationship. My godparents were like that, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen it go all the way till my godmother had died and my godfather was right by her bedside.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not a healthy relationship. And she was the dominant one. Oh yeah. She was a great godmother. Oh my gosh, fantastic godparents, but I would not want to be married to her. But to me, that's just kind of writing it out. Whereas realizing that this is unhealthy and having to work at it is different, right?
Yeah. And I know this is your show, but this kind of just popped in my head, so I'm gonna roll with it. But
Please.
like, when it comes, like, for me and like my clients, the people that I teach, really what it comes down to, like, you're just talking about death, so it kind of like popped in my head. But like, when you're lying on your deathbed, like, what are you looking back, like, at your life? Like, were you fulfilled? Were you unhappy?
Yeah.
Were you mad because you didn't, like, leave that person, or you didn't, like, take that, it sounds so silly, but like, take that shot or whatever it is, like, it's really kind of a very, like, existential question.
It's a fantastic question. And you know what I've actually noticed in my experience with the widow or widower is they will actually lie to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And they will lie to you, and they will lie to themselves and say that their marriage was fantastic, or they just won't be truthful anymore. They're almost like creating this fictional story.
Mm.
And you're sitting there scratching your head going, you realize that I was present during your marriage, right? I was there. And I know that's not how it went.
It wasn't good.
Yeah, that's my mom. My mom is like that. My parents had a very rocky relationship. It was very, very, very rocky. But you talk to my mom now, God bless her soul, she's 85 years old, and she still cooks Christmas Eve dinner. But you talk to her now, and her and my father had the most fantastic relationship, right? And at that point, you just basically, you just humor her. You go, okay. But you scrap. Me and my brothers look at each other like, what?
Oh, I understand that so deeply. You have no idea.
Oh, okay. So where can people reach you? Plug your business, plug how people can reach you. And because we want to, maybe draw up some business besides giving me an interview.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So go ahead. Why don't you tell all almost 200 subscribers of Serious and Silliness where they can reach you and how they could get, choose to have you help them.
Sure. I do most of my stuff on Instagram, as you've seen. Are you going to link it up? Do you do links in the comments?
Yeah, I'll make sure that I put the Instagram in there. And but good. Why don't you just give us your Instagram and whatever else?
Yeah, it's Lilli Bewley, Lilli, B as in boy, Ewley.
Lilibewley.
Yeah.
At Instagram. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm pretty active on Instagram. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. And where else could they find you?
That's probably the main place. I do. I'm pretty active on there. I do live Q&A every Thursday night on there.
Okay. Okay.
Do you know when this is going to air?
Probably today is Tuesday. We're probably right. I would say by the latest Thursday, maybe.
Okay. I asked because I have some webinars and masterclasses coming up as well, and I can send you the link to those. I have a breakthrough codependency and connect with purpose masterclass coming up in a week, and then also on the 29th. And then I'm doing also in January, I have a workshop coming up, which is called Cutting the Codependency Cord. And I'll send you the link to all that stuff too.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I'll definitely put this in.
Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. And this is all virtual, I'm assuming.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. I know in Arizona you guys are okay, but everywhere else is a nightmare.
It is.
But okay, that was fantastic, and I really appreciate you coming on. And it was very, very informative, and I think a lot of people get a lot out of it. And you know, you're truly a talented person when it comes to life coaching and relationship coaching, because a lot of people, you know, they I think for somebody like yourself to do what they do for a living, they have to be aware, and they have to be self-aware, and they also have to kind of be a good judge of character, and they have to be aware of their surroundings and what goes on. Because if you're not, you would never be able to, one, do what you do for a living, or two, do it well, or nor would they want to do that for a living. So you're truly a talented person, and I'm glad that your life took a turn for the better.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're here now, and hopefully we will do this again.
Yeah, for sure. I like that.
Lilli, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on Serious and Silliness. And if you haven't yet, subscribe and comment and share. And pretty soon, Serious and Silliness will also be on Apple Podcasts and Spotify Podcasts, so you'll be able to listen and not just see our pretty faces. Thank you again, Lilli.
My pleasure.
You killed it. You killed my washing machine.
No, it was the tide. You know, I was standing up to I was being a man.
But you're not a man, Lester. You're not even half a man. Honestly, I don't know what got into me marrying you. My mom said, don't do it, Pearl. She said, he's the kind of boy that loses all the time. And you know what those boys grow up to be, don't you? Losers.
Take that back.
For what? What are you gonna do? You can't even face me when we're having sex.
Now, hold on. That is you not facing me.
That's so I can picture a real man.
Oh! You take that back.
For what? What are you gonna do? Oh! You gonna hit me? That's a lie.